Hey, what's going on, guys? I just got done watching My Adventures with Superman, Season 1, Episode 3. So, to start things off, Lois Lane is continuing to chase down Superman. She's looking for that big interview, and Kent Clark, aka the now Superman, is kind of trying out this new persona. So he's going around the city and saving people, as seen in the beginning, which he saves someone that crashed a blimp into a building, something falls, then he has to save a little girl from something falling on top of her. This is whenever we get to the opening, and the opening was a nice little change up. I don't really remember the other one, but this seemed quite a bit better than the other one. I loved it. It kind of made me like feel happy. You know how you're just looking at some Saturday Night cartoons? That's how it made me feel. I felt something. And we get to the other main meat of the plot of this episode. This is where we see someone going for a breakout of a clearly a jail or prison. I think it's a prison. So the name of the person that's trying to break out someone, which we'll get to the other name. So it's the Mist. And who is the Mist trying to break out? Well, Slabhan McDougal, I probably said that very incorrectly, but AKA she's the Silver Banshee, and her brother that is breaking her out is the Mist. And along with that, they have a big bulkier guy that's working with them. And this is where the plot gets a little weird. They get weapons from no other than the Livewire, which is quite questionable. Like, what's going on with Livewire and everything else? And it's getting insane now. I love it and I'm here for it. So we have a question now. But now they have all this high tech gear and they escape prison. Of course, we get to go back to Kent Clark, Lewis, and Jimmy, and they go to the office after Lewis and Kent bumped into each other. And Kent is in love with Lewis and he's not really paying attention at all. He brought her coffee, and then it's like the coffee's from really far away, so she kind of questioned it. He's like, "Oh, I jogged to get it," but she's like, "Oh, that's from halfway across the city." And now they get to go and check on Jimmy. They go into the little office that Lewis Lane kind of prepared for the story. And this is where we're introduced to the new crew that's taken over their story. And the whole gimmick was they took everything they have and they're like, yeah, we'll write a little credit for you. So now Lewis Lane has to chase the story while another news team is competing with her and everyone else because, well, they're going to obviously help Lewis because, well, they're kind of stuck in it now. It wouldn't be Superman if they didn't help Lewis. But anyway, this is where they go to the prison after they saw in the TV of the newsroom where this big story of a bunch of escapees going down. And they pose as those same people because Lewis stole some passes, which are like the nice passes that they wear, the news reporters, to go to different scenes and such. And they get back there with the warden and they start talking, and the warden's not really budging. This is where the warden gets a phone call about news reporters, and they kind of get found out. So while they're getting found out, of course, they see the room where the breakout happened, and yeah, Lewis Lane stole a key card. They go in there, and they kind of go investigating and seeing what's going on. So the whole thing is Silver Banshee was looking for something bigger to do. They've been doing this small crime. They now have different tech gears. So her brother, which is Mist, he has a cloak or something that makes him go invisible. She has this mask that makes her voice vibrate higher, or it just echoes, and it kind of shoots her voice. So it's like a projectile now. And the bigger dude, who's kind of like this side character, I think I was looking at the captions and they just call him Grunt, which I don't think is important really, but he is for this episode in a way. He wears these gloves. So they escape from that, and on a sign they see a schematics for a bank. So there's this other side thing, and this is where we see that they get sent a giant freeze ray, the villain group, the three of them. And this freeze ray, it's already having problems, so they let it off in their house, and it doesn't want to turn off. So of course the big bulky guy has to hit it with his gauntlets because the gauntlets give him super strength, and it turns off. So now we have the whole Kent Clark, Lewis, and Jimmy. They're like, oh, what do these times mean? Oh, they're probably whenever the armored trucks come in. So now we got to prepare for a bank robbery. This is whenever you get the three villains. They take the freeze ray and all their secret weapons. Mist makes them all invisible. They sneak in, freeze ray everyone. There's one guard that didn't get freeze rayed. They're going after the money and they get really cocky and they don't leave fast enough. This is where Lewis's big plan, as soon as they head on the scene, pretty much, is to get hostage. So she wanted to be a hostage so she could interview Superman, which is stupid. And Kent's like, what the heck? Because he's being harassed in a way, Ken is, and he's like, I need to stay away from Lewis. She's gonna figure me out. So he's kind of staying away from her in that sense and trying to ignore that and get away from it. So Ken has to switch out because this freeze ray, it shoots out, and he's Superman now. And he's like, "Oh, Lewis and Jimmy, stay clear and evacuate. Your friend will be safe or whatever." And he goes in. So during this episode, throughout it, Kent was having these like weird visions of red, which I wasn't for sure if that was like some type of spidey senses kicking in. But this is something that comes very important. So he kept like grabbing his eyes like it was hurting. Anyway, the bank robbery's going down and they're all fighting Superman. You have Banshee trying to shoot projectiles at him. Invisible dude, he wasn't doing anything besides turning on the freeze ray. He tries to freeze ray him and it doesn't work. Big bulky guy and him are brawling and he's able to stop him. And finally, the freeze ray got out of control, like I said. Gauntlet guy hits it, and whenever Gauntlet guy hits it, it gets so out of control that it just flies up in the air. And if you remember, Livewire's electrical equipment went out of control. It did the same thing. So inside that bank building, it turned into a winter storm and everyone was getting frozen. This is where all of a sudden our man Superman finally gets these flashbacks. After everything was frozen solid, he gets this like red, and this is where he gains a new power. He uses his heat vision, and he heat visions himself out of the iceberg, and then hits that giant freeze ray, blows up, all the ice disintegrates. Boom, problem solved. Bunch of people get on site, and Superman saves the day. That's pretty much the best way I could explain it. Probably a little too much over the top. It was really cool, but not only did he gain his new power, but we have a flashback on the planet where a bunch of robots are actually using heat vision. So it makes me question it. Eventually, are we going to see like a full movie of what happened to him and his ancestors and his dad and mom? I don't know. That'd be really cool if they eventually do a movie going back to the events. That's my recommendation, at least. But after all that, we see two guys come in. They're clearly supposed to be like EMS, and this is where we get zoomed into one of them, and it's the white hair guy from last episode that was shocking Livewire. He's the one that gave those guys the weapons. It was not Livewire. Livewire is probably going to be working for him, and I do not know who that guy is, but he is some type of crazy villain. I call it. I call it. He's going to be one of the craziest villains this season. Anyway, after that, Lois Lane finally scores her big interview. Kent Clark is out of the picture because, Superman's Kent Clark. He talks to Lewis about it, and I don't know where the other reporters come. He picks up Lewis, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like one of the best moments. I'm not really like a huge romance person, but in this like animation, it's so well done. He picks up Lewis and takes her with him, and she's blushing, he's blushing, and they're talking about how the sky is beautiful and how he says beautiful referring to her. They get on the planet's building, and this is where the little interview goes down, and basically the questions that were being asked are like, no, I don't know, I'm still figuring out who I am. You already know what kind of questions she would ask, obviously. And this is where he flies off as he's answering the last question. And Kit Clark comes running up the stairs of the fire escape of the building, and Lewis talks to Kent. And during the conversation, this is where something's brought up. So Kent acts shocked whenever she says, "Oh, I got that interview with Superman." She calls him a liar. So we get a little bit of this is where they want you to watch another episode because they're like, "What? What?" I love that they're doing this. And I have a feeling it's just gonna. So, this is my theory. I've not seen any other episodes, but I think it's gonna be something stupid like he's lying or something like that. I do not think that his identity's been exposed yet. That's what it's trying to hint you at. Obviously, I just think it's gonna be something dumb because this is what this series has done so far, and I think that's the big thing about Superman. Now, eventually, there's no inevitable. It's gonna come out. Anyway, guys, tell me what your thoughts are on this episode. I thought the villains in this were really dumb, but they're just pawns, right? They're just pawns. You look it up. Sometimes I'll look it up and be like, oh, these guys were just minor characters, like minor villains that were needed for X to get to Y, or just to throw in there just to make something happen. You need villains just to have villains. It wouldn't be a superhero book if they didn't. But yeah, guys, overall, I gotta say 8.5 on the deck. I love the way that they have introduced the power. It's really cool. And as time goes on, I'm sure we're gonna get learn more and more things about him. I can't really think about it. Like, what other powers does Superman have? Hmm. Oh, yeah, there is other ones, but we'll get to that eventually. I hope. I hope. Really awesome. So, I hope you guys stay safe, and as always, peace.